Hey, welcome back to another episode of Team Building Tips with Dan Talbot. We'll be right back with Dan's segment for this week. Well, we want to say thank you to our podcast partners, the global community of women in high school sports, and We Coach. These are two great organizations that you need to be a part of. Now, let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of our regular podcast episodes. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with 95% of the parents who really love your program, and it helps them demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration. But Final Forms is so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, and they've got reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come with you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their athletes perform better. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, our school is a Huddle school. And our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle can help every athlete, every team, every coach play at the highest level. And they've got a professional grade solution for your athletic department. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Go to huddle.com to get started today. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and use the podcast code ADPOD10. That's ADPOD10 and get 10% off. Go to gipper.com, start creating custom branded content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. At Snap Mobile, we know that athletic directors sometimes need a hand, and we're here to provide that support. Go to onsnap.com, that's onsnap.com, and check out their entire platform and see how they can help you. Snap Raise is the fundraising platform that our coaches have used with great success, and you can too. Snap Spend is their secure money management platform for clubs and organizations. Snap Store allows you to buy high quality, affordable spirit gear for your entire fan base. Snap Manage is their custom website design platform that they can build an entire website for you and your school. And Snap Connect is their secure multilingual family engagement platform. You can find it all on onsnap.com or contact your Snap mobile rep to get your support. That's onsnap.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online and how to scan your attendees and collect the revenue. And every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell online tickets for things like school dances, school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. And we want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's athletic record boards for all the sports, for all the events, and a neat way to display your Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Their touchscreen video consoles and their library of templates allow you to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. We use the Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Check them out. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Team Building Tips on the Educational AD Podcast. Every Thursday, we visit with Dan Talbot, a certified master athletic administrator. He's the senior athletic administrator in Polk County, which is in Florida. Also very active. He's on our state board. He's active nationally. And like I said, we do this every week. So, Dan, we're up to episode number 26 of Team Building Tips. What do you have for us this week?
Well, this is something I'm really passionate about. And I guess, other than, being on time, my father was in the military. So I'm very regimented about being on time to meetings. And like, if I'm 5 minutes late for a meeting and it's no big deal, I kind of get, my brain kind of goes wacky. But the other thing that I'm passionate about, especially being an athletic administrator, and it is an LTI course that I have taken and enjoyed thoroughly, is curb appeal. And nothing more, especially being in my role as a district athletic director, is driving up to a school to look at their athletic facilities. And I'm not talking about, I want to talk about everything, but baseball tarps, they're kind of just rolled up and bottled up behind the dugout. There's no excuse for that. That's just laziness on the coach's part. If the paint's not well, buying some paint it yourself. I've never done anything that I wouldn't ask a coach to do. I painted locker rooms. I painted boards together. I put together platforms for weightlifting. I put together, the power racks by hand and sanded them and varnished them and sanded them again and varnished them again. I've done all those different things. So I don't have a very high tolerance for lazy coaches when they can't take care of their facilities. Because I just think about it. We go out in the community, we represent part of our community and where the schools we live in, and we ask them for donations, whether it be for money or for food or for whatever it is. And if people's facilities are not kept up in neat and tidiness, and granted, all coaches wish they had a Taj Mahal facility and everything looked great. But my thing is, I'm not going to buy you a Taj Mahal facility if you can't even take care of the one you have. And a perfect example in our county is we have a track coach at one of our high schools. He figured out, he had an asphalt track. He figured out a way to host cross-country meets. He figured out a way to host track meets on an asphalt track. He did everything he could. And then we ran into some money, and somebody asked me, hey, we want to put down a rubber track at what facility? Well, it was no question where that state-of-the-art track facility was going. It was going to that coach who basically took pride in what he had, which wasn't great by any means. But I knew he would take care of that rubber track in that brand new state-of-the-art facility because he took care of what he had, and he treated his not so adequate facilities like they were state-of-the-art. So I'm big on curb appeal. At my IT department, we got a new IT person. She's actually designing me an app where I can go to schools and I can pull up the school and I can go through a series of questions inspecting facilities and how they look, and meet with the athletic directors about the expectations of what facilities should look like, and be able to right from my phone, type in some things and hit send, and it'll go right to the athletic director without me having to interrupt that person's day or what they're doing. It'll just go to their email. It'll go to my email and let me know that, it was looked at. But another part of the curb appeal is you as an athletic administrator is looking at your facilities is the potential for safety concerns. Do you inspect your facilities, on a weekly basis before the season starts? Are you getting your bleachers indoor and outdoor inspected every 2 years like you're supposed to? Have you walked the bleachers and felt every handrail? Because those are potential concerns that not necessarily your coach thinks about, but you need to think about as an athletic administrator. It's all those different, parts of a bleacher. Are they loose? Is the seat coming unloose? Because if someone gets injured, there is negligence. When you do report something, make sure you save the work order, however your district or your school, however you submit those, make sure you got a copy of it, because once it leaves your desk and you reported it, that's going to protect you in the future. And here's a perfect example. When I left one school to go to another, of course, as soon as I got there, the school was like, hey, can we get our water fountain? For some reason, their water fountain for baseball was behind the dugout, and it wasn't in the dugout. So they wanted it moved. I said, no problem. I'll put a work order in and get it moved. And of course, they said, well, we've been trying that for 3 years. It's like, okay, well. So I put in the work order, and it was interesting because once you relate a work order to the health and safety of student athletes, you'll be amazed on how fast things start to move. Because when you put in the work order, say, I need the water fountain moved from outside the dugout to inside the dugout. But if you then tie it to health and safety of a student athlete, I put the work order in that morning. The next day, there was a brand new water fountain being brought over. That old water fountain was being destroyed, and it was put inside the dugout. They had a little secure room. They wanted to keep that thing in there. And it's amazing when things relate to the health and safety of one of student athletes or your fan base. Are you checking the bleachers? Are you checking, certain areas? How's your basketball court? Is it being varnished every year? All those little different things that you got to think about as an athletic administrator. I think, because for the most part, people ask me, what recommendations can you give as an athletic director? And a lot of times the ones in my district, I let them go. I let them run wild for a little while, because one, they got to make mistakes. And I tell them, I said, if you feel like your head's above water or barely below the water line at the end of the year, then you had a successful year, because you can tell them everything that they need to do, and they really have to find their own way. Now, there's certain things that, you got to keep your finger on and your thumb on with certain policies and procedures and expectations for your sake. But a lot of times I let them run and kind of find their own way, and knowing that the second year is going to be easier. And then after the first year, we sit down and we talk about the entire year. And then they realize, that when you become an athletic director, rearranging your office over the summer is probably not ideal thing you should be doing, because that doesn't help you in any way. Yes, your office looks nice, but that's not going to keep you out of trouble. So my recommendation is have a form, have some kind of checklist for you and your coaches, whether it's during the season, prior to the season starting. Make sure there's plenty of time. Don't do it the day before the season starts and come with a laundry list of work orders for your maintenance department to go fix. But have a plan or process in place to inspect your facilities prior to the season starting. And then as an athletic administrator, walk them on a weekly basis. How many times have we noticed a football field where there's a little patch of brown grass in that area? Well, that instantly tells me, especially in Florida, if the whole field's green and there's one area that's brown, we have a broken sprinkler head. So we can stay on top of those issues, get that sprinkler head fixed, rewater the grass, everything's fine. But if you're not monitoring your facilities and then that grass dies, you have a bigger issue, because the maintenance people, you'll be amazed if you as an athletic administrator and your coaches take ownership in the facilities to then help them. You'll be amazed on how much more they will help you, especially if you're monitoring things, because believe me, changing a sprinkler head is very simple than changing a sprinkler head, cutting sod, buying sod, and relaying sod for a field where if you're walking them on a weekly basis, you would have seen that the green grass is brown. You could just change sprinkler and moved on. So there has to be ownership, especially with your facilities, with the maintenance department, you, the athletic administrator, and the coach. And it'll be amazing too, especially when I was the athletic director at a high school here in town, we wanted to repaint our whole baseball facility. And the only thing we asked for was the paint from the district. And the district said, you're going to paint the facility? I said, if you bring the paint, we're going to paint it. And the facility, they love that because that's really their area. So when we repainted that whole baseball field, because we wanted to spruce it up, the expectations of our baseball coach and what we wanted the program to be, the facilities guys really got the credit because that's their main area. So you can build a partnership, just with your maintenance department, with your coaches, with your athletic administration, and you'll be amazed when people in the community see you start to spruce things up, how many people want to help, because no one's going to start the conversation. But if they see you working, you'll be amazed on how many people want to join in and help, and what can they do and what can they offer. And then that builds that partnership. But curb appeal and facility maintenance and checkups is key as an athletic administrator.
Yeah, you're so right. I was just recalling similar episodes at schools I was at as you were going down your list. And you're right, that curb appeal course was a really cool one. I remember taking it and just coming away with so many ideas from the course itself, as well as sitting at the tables talking to ADs. And I'm glad you mentioned this. It does cover that spectrum from, the bad end of not inspecting your facilities and having something come up, liability wise. And then all the way at the other end where we should be, just really creating that best first impression for the students when they come out to practice. Wow, what a great facility. I love playing for this team. The fans, the visitors. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give our listeners one more good example of curb appeal. Maybe it was something that you did or a coach did. And then also, at that other end of the spectrum, something that obviously not at your district, but you heard about at another district where, hey, this could have been prevented. You got anything you can share?
And trust me, this is the one thing I'll say about being an athletic administrator. If you call another athletic administrator and you ask them how it's going, they say, oh, it's going great, they're lying. Okay. So I don't need to look outside my county for issues or problems, because believe me, we have enough right here. But one thing I always thought a coach did, especially at the football stadium, we had a really nice stadium. We have actually a lot of nice football stadiums, and they're massive stadiums. But he always had a parent and kid, student athlete, spruce up the stadium day on a Saturday, where they would come up and they would trim the bushes, wash the bleachers, clean up the trash that maybe the custodians or that staff had missed, because a lot of things come up. But there was that ownership of, one, the coaches, the student athletes, and then the parents all coming together to clean up the place that these student athletes are going to be almost every other Friday night in the fall, and want to put on a good show for the visitors. And I think there was ownership in that. And I love when coaches do that and get their parents involved and do those different things. But on the other hand, unfortunately, we just built a brand new school and it's magnificent. And we just didn't stay up upon the facilities. It was interesting because this was the first school we have that the fields are watered with potable water, and no one knew it. And so the amount of weeds, I saw stuff growing in this grass that I've never seen in my life. And once we figured out it was potable water, we could finally get the right chemicals and treatment and fertilizer and all that different stuff that we needed for our practice fields to maintain the expectation that we want, because we want people to come to our facilities and be blown away. You never want people to come to your facility and be like, man, this place is doesn't represent yourself, your school, your community in a positive light. And trust me, I get it. We have some schools that were built in the 1955s. In 1955 is one of our high schools, but there's no excuse for it not to be clean. It can be older, but it still can be clean. You can still do it the best you have with it. Don't use that as an excuse because, well, our school's older and that school's brand new. That's why it looks better. Take pride in what you have. But, we have our issues here. Our fields have gotten away from us in our facilities due to, water, chemicals, and just not knowing. Because I've never dealt with potable water until this very first school. But it's one thing I wrote down on my list because we're building another school next year. And that's one of the first questions I'm going to ask is, what kind of water are you going to use to water in the fields? Because it does make a difference.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever come across that one, but another great tip out there. And you're right about the new school, old school. Some older buildings and older stadiums, I mean, they just look great. I mean, you walk in and you just go, wow, this is, there's no other way to say it. This is old school.
And one of our iconic stadiums right here in town is getting a facelift. They're actually in the process of painting it right now. And it was built in the 1920s, but they're putting paint on it. They're doing things to spruce it up. They're making the best of what they have. Mm-hmm. And, everybody wants a new stadium. Everybody wants all this stuff that's brand new, and it just goes back to, I guess, my upbringing. When I turned 16, I was like every other 16-year-old. I wanted that brand new car in the driveway with a bow on it, but that wasn't the case. And I'll never forget, I got a 1973 Dodge Colt with a little Hemi head engine in it thing. That thing was silver with a orange and blue racing stripe down the side. My father paid $300 for it, and he told me to treat that car like it was a Cadillac, and then he would see what we could do, because he knew if he bought me a brand new car, I wouldn't take care of it, wouldn't appreciate it, wouldn't do those things. But I took that $300 Dodge Colt, loved every minute of it. I was just happy to have wheels in high school because it didn't matter what kind it was. It was a little car. I couldn't fit in it. I actually had the stereo in the glove box. This is kind of aging myself, for you young administrators out there. But, that was my thing is, even though it's older, that car was older, was no excuse not to take care of it, and no excuse not to treat it like, because it was the best thing I had because it was the only thing I had. Mm-hmm. And my father wasn't going to go on the premises of, well, if you get me a new car, I promise I'll take care of it. I'll do better. You had to, show first and talk later.
No. Hey, and that's a great policy to have, with our coaches and our ADs too.
Something my father taught me, how many, 5-6 years ago, I guess I won't age myself, but, something he taught me growing up, learn to appreciate what you have and take care of what you have and treat it like it's $1 million. Because then when you do get that facility or that car, you're going to take better care of it as you get older, and don't rely on the fact that, well, if it was brand new, I would take care of it. Because look, if they're not taking care of the old, they're not going to take care of the new either. That's just their nature of the being. So.
No, one of my, you just made me think, one of my pet peeves with coaches, I would always tell them, at the end of practice, pick up your toys, put your stuff away. And, that coach that was leaving, balls and bags and all kinds of stuff out on the field, I was very less likely to get them some new toys because they weren't taking care of their.
Oh, so I have a policy here too. And in Polk County, I'm fortunate enough because I really do believe people make fun of Polk County because we have a high surplus of I guess you call them rednecks, which would be good old boys. But I mean, I tell you what, they get stuff done. And if you ever need anything fixed, whether it's a paint machine, whether it's a John Deere Gator, when you come to Polk County, they'll fix those things in 5 minutes, which it was great for us because we saved money. But I think we do a good job of giving people what they need to be successful, no matter what they're doing. But it's just one of those things where you got to have some pride in who you are and what you represent. And also as an athletic administrator, it's your school. Mm-hmm. And, we'll talk about in future episodes having a good relationship with your administration, which is key as well. But I think, moving forward and making sure that you're doing the best of what you have is very important.
Yeah, that curb appeal, it reflects on everybody, all the way from the superintendent's office, all the way down, however you want to spread it out. Dan, as always, great information for our listeners. If one of our listeners wants to reach out and find out a little bit more, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is by cell phone. This is my personal cell phone. If you call my office, it'll just ring and you'll just be on the other end by yourself. But my cell phone is 863-661-0647. Again, 863-661-0647.
For our listeners, we do this every week, team building tips with Dan Talbot. All the Zoom recordings of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back next week for another episode of Team Building Tips and just about every day for the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.
And then one last thing, and don't feel bad after you listen to this podcast or you take the Curb Appeal class, either at your state level or national association. Because I remember when I took mine and I went back, as soon as the class was over, I went back to my school, man, and I was thoroughly embarrassed. But you got to start somewhere. So don't feel bad if you kind of I know there's a lot going on and everything's kind of stressful and everyone's pulling you a different direction. But, once it's brought to your attention, you can always fix it. That's the nice thing.
Yeah. I mean, find a project that you can fix, start with that. And like Dan said, the people in your community, your coaches, your students, they're going to say, wow, that's really cool. How can I help you do something else? So, yeah.
We were talking about, you asked me, you came into Polk County and you asked where my physical office was. Well, our main district office is in Bartow, but I'm at a satellite office in Lakeland. When I first moved out to the satellite office, it's literally in the neighborhood. I mean, people always ask, this is your office, which I love, by the way, because if you come to Polk County, you're going to have to call me. I'll give you directions to find me. But when I first got here, it looked like the grass hadn't been mowed in a year. So the next day, I brought my trimmer, my weed eater, my blower, my lawnmower, my own personal, and I was mowing the yard. Well, I guess someone called the district and said, the county athletic director is mowing his own field, mowing his own office? And then within 45 minutes, man, like 8 trucks pulled in with all the district mowers. And I said, what are you guys doing here? Like, someone said you were mowing the grass. I was like, and? Because some of my best days as a school-based athletic director and a football coach was either painting the field or mowing the grass. Because not one time in my whole career did a principal ever walk from his office out to that 100-degree football field and said, I need to speak to you, when he heard I was on a tractor or painting the field. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's a whole nother episode, but thanks, Dan, as always. And listeners, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Team Building Tips. As always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com and start selling your tickets digitally. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of our regular podcast. We use surveys for just about everything at the schools I was at, and the information typically it would come back very positive, but the surveys also allowed that squeaky wheel parent to vent. And sometimes they'd share a small issue that you could address and keep it from turning into a big issue because you didn't know about it because you hadn't done a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Gipper. The template that you're looking at right now is a Gipper template, and they've got thousands more to help you create world-class content for your school's social media channel. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, use the podcast code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to Huddle.com and find out how your school can become a Huddle school. You've heard me say, I used Huddle as a football coach, and as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school. Go to Huddle.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Their indoor video boards and consoles can help you display your school's record boards and your Hall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. You've also heard me say we had a Sideline Interactive, or we have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for games, for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration. Final Forms can help your stakeholders, your coaches, and you. Go to finalforms.com/Jake for more information. And we want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. They've got a tremendous platform. Snap Raise is one of their more popular ones. Our coaches use Snap Raise as a fundraiser, and it was just great. They also have Snap Spend for money management, Snap Store for custom spirit wear for everybody on your team. Snap Manage is a website platform, and Snap Connect is their family engagement portal. Go to onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com for more information. Before we go, we want to say thanks to our partners, We Coach, and the global community, and we'll see you next time on Team Building Tips with Dan Talbot.